We've ranked In Flames, we've ranked At the Gates, we've ranked Dark Tranquillity and Arch Enemy. But now it's time to complete the set and rank the albums of Soilwork. Alright, let's get right into it with Steelbath Suicide in 1998. So as a big fan of classic Gothenburg Melodeath, I actually prefer their early albums, and I think that it's a travesty that these are the lowest fan rated on Metal Storm. Because as I said in the melodic death metal tier list series I've been doing, I consider these to be some of the best debut albums of the entire era. They had a very strong start, even in terms of both songwriting and production quality, all with stellar riffing with that trademark Soilwork sound right from the beginning. Very strong vocal performance at this point, focusing more on the harsh side of things, and unlike a lot of albums from this time, it practices a lot of restraint, clocking in at just over 35 minutes and just leaves you wanting more. Every track is great, but Razor Lives may be my personal favorite. Yeah, easy S tier right off the bat. And then they followed that up with the Chainheart Machine in 2000, and I'm just gonna say it, this is easily one of, if not their best album overall, in my opinion. The riffs are insane, and Bjorn gives his most aggro vocal performance of his entire career. The title track is also one of the best album openers in melodic death metal, and maybe metal period, with that punchy sort of industrial sample before we kick right into high gear. Bullet Beast is a total banger, Generation Speedkill is a straight thrasher with super infectious scream-along moments, Spirits of the Future Sun is fantastic, start to finish just an instant classic, top 10 Melodeath album overall for me. This one is also going to S tier and even above Steelbath Suicide. Then we got A Predator's Portrait in 2001, so once more kicking off on a killer opener with Bastard Chain. Moving into a little bit more modern production on this one, and maybe slightly more groove-oriented and less aggressive overall, with more focus on melody, especially with tracks like The Avenger, Stalker, and Neurotica Rampage. Also starting to incorporate some clean vocals in a similar vein as In Flames were doing around this time on like Reroute to Remain, and I also hear a lot of that In Flames influence on a lot of the guitar harmonies. And as always, the riffs and drumming are undeniable, and just plenty of great tracks here like Needlefast and Grand Failure Anthem. Gonna put this one at A tier. Then another big one here with Natural Born Chaos in 2002. This was actually the album that introduced me to Soilwork to begin with. Follow the Hollow is definitely a classic and one of my favorite songs from the band. No small wonder that it got me hooked, as it's another all-time best opener, and that chorus is insanely catchy. The production also sounds great thanks to Devin Townsend stepping in, definitely leaning even more into the melodic side of their sound with lots of atmosphere, plenty of great songs here as well, like As We Speak, The Flameout, and Black Star Deceiver. Definitely a very popular choice among fans. I've actually been through a lot of ups and downs with this myself. I love it when I bought it initially on CD at Best Buy back in the day. Then I started finding it a little bit corny, and now I've circled back to enjoying it again, even if I think it's a little inconsistent and maybe even slightly overrated. But even so, it's definitely one of my favorites from them overall. It's also going to pretty high on A tier. That brings us to figure number 5 in 2003. This was another album I listened to a lot in high school and then had some ups and downs with over the years. It starts off strong with the extremely infectious Rejection Roll. Another super catchy chorus on this one and a fun mix of melodic death metal, groove, and rock. Overload is also fun, leaning even more heavily into the rock and roll elements contrasted with the synth hook and more drifty, melancholic chorus. Strong title track with tons of wailing guitars and soloing in addition to the more headbanging riffs. Light the Torch even has some kind of Slipknot sounding guitars. Departure Plan is like one big super epic build that never fails to put a smile on my face, even if it is a little bit corny at times. On this latest re-listening, I'm definitely enjoying it much more again. It's a bit more commercial sounding, but I think they did a great great job of doing that while still maintaining their roots. The heavy parts are still great while also offering plenty of radio-ready sing-alongs. And all in all, a pretty brisk 40-minute runtime without any major lulls in energy, and this may be a hot take, but I actually like it more than Natural Born Chaos, I think.
Surprise, motherfucker!
Yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised. I'm putting this one at S tier as well. Also worth noting, in case you didn't notice, that from 2000 to 2003, they were dropping an album every year. So pretty impressive to do that without a single dud along the way. Also, by the way, don't forget to let me know down in the comments how you would rank these as we go along. Disagreements always welcome. This is just my subjective opinion at this time. But now we go to Stabbing the Drama in 2005. So most of the songwriting here was done by Peter Witchers, who left the band after this album, and continuing the trend of sort of simplifying their sound, going in a little bit more of like a rock direction. Lots of similarities to Figure Number 5, but arguably even more streamlined here. And this is what turned me off back when it came out, to the point that I pretty much abandoned listening to the band for a long time. But revisiting it now, it's not nearly as bad as I remember. I think I just had a very adolescent, firm expectation of what I wanted from the album, and it just didn't quite deliver on that.
Congratulations, you found yourself! Been preaching too many times to a hysterical night!
But it's still plenty of fun, with lots of groovy riffs to be found on tracks like One with the Flies, Weapon of Vanity, Observation Slave, and Stalemate. Great drumming on Fate in Motion. I still don't like it as much as those previous two, but it's another very solid album, and I see why some list it among their favorites. I just feel like it's missing some of the heavier elements, and the songwriting doesn't consistently stick with me quite as much. Maybe with time that'll change. In any case, right now I'm feeling a B tier. Then we had Sworn to a Great Divide in 2007, so entering into some albums that I hadn't listened to actually until now. This is the only album with Daniel Antonsen on guitar, and the last with Ola Frenning. The title track feels a bit clunky and makes for a kind of disappointing opener for the first time really in their career, because like all of those other albums that we've talked about had just banger title tracks and openers. The production just feels a little bit off, kind of thin or something. Not really digging Exile as a follow-up either. I'm just having trouble connecting to anything, even though there's nothing explicitly wrong with any of the performances. Your Beloved Scapegoat got my attention a little bit. Sick Heart River has some feels to it. Not bad, just very meh. Plenty of downtime, and even the best songs are nowhere on the same level as the previous albums. Interestingly, this was their most commercially successful album at the time, but personally, I'm putting this one at C tier. And you may have noticed at this point I actually augmented the tier list because Soilwork is a pretty consistent band, and I don't think they have any bad albums. They only have like great albums and like less great albums. So moving along, we have The Panic Broadcast in 2010. Much stronger opener here with Late for the Kill. Early for the Slaughter feels more like something off of Figure Number 5 or Stabbing the Drama, which makes some sense considering that Peter Witchers makes his return here both to play guitar and produce. And I'd say that pretty well sets the tone for the entire album. Lots of amped up, bluesy, Lamb of God sounding riffs on tracks like Two Lives, Worth the Reckoning, and The Thrill. Lots of really solid melodic stuff too. Still not as good as their early 2000s material, but definitely a major step back in the right direction while also feeling like its own thing and not just a retread. This was also their highest charting album at the time at number 8. I'm going to put this one at B tier as well. So then we got The Living Infinite in 2013. So David Anderson of Night Flight Orchestra stepping in on guitar here, and seemingly ready to shake things up again. This is a much more progressively minded album with 2 discs covering nearly a daunting hour-and-a-half runtime. Double albums are rarely worth the investment in my experience, but goddamn do they make every second of this thing count. I love the classy string intro of Spectrum of Eternity before they come with the heavy. This track feels like it could have been on Natural Born Chaos, but with a decade now of new experience under their belts. Similar feelings for the great riffing on Realm of the Wasted. Tongue has a great mix of complex guitar work, lofty melodic vocals, and even a little jazz break before the final triumphant solo. Let the First Wave Rise is a total ripper. Vesta kicks off with a nice touch of acoustic before exploding into a blissful wall of sound, whispers and lights, even bringing in the 70s style Hammond organ. I could go on and on with this one, but in short, it's just an all-around fun, multi-textured, and frequently quite stunning journey that feels like the culmination of all of this band's greatest strengths. I've said that Bjorn's cleans are often best suited for progressive metal, and that is absolutely true on this album. And honestly, I'd compare this one more to something like Isan's Arctis than any of their own previous works. It's no wonder why critics seem to love it as well. I'm putting it at A tier. I almost put it up at S tier. Next is the Ride Majestic in 2015. The titular opener on this one largely seems to pick up right where that last one left off, with more massive sounding walls of guitar and pounding drums. Lots of big soaring melodies, but also plenty of tasty headbanging hooks as on Death in General or Petrichor by Sulfur. Lots of wicked solos too. The Ride Majestic Aspire Angelic is another standout with lots of dueling harmonies and powerful vocals. Shining Lights wails. I'm not as in love with this one, but yet another very strong entry in their discography. I'm putting it at B-. Then we had Verkligheten in 2019.
Verkligheten.
The slide guitar on the intro track makes me feel like I'm about to watch like a spaghetti western. But Arrival once more brings the riffs alongside another killer performance from Bjorn. It does lose some steam for me after this though. Another case of not bad songs, just ones that have never really connected or stuck with me even when it initially came out to right now. I don't know, is it just me? Again, let me know down in the comments how you feel about this one and why. I just feel like it's missing some of the energy. The songs feel a little bit meandering. White Tan and Needles and Kin are pretty solid. The Ageless Whisper has its moments. I hate to say it, but I just kind of get bored with this one, and I can't really put my finger on why. So this is another one going at B-. Little quick shout out here too to the EP A Wisp of the Atlantic, because that is just a banger release. Another one I would honestly put at S tier, despite it being a shorter release, but every song on that absolutely fucks. But this brings us to 2022 with
Övergivenheten.
Yeah, with the asshole comments I get on pronunciation, I'm not even gonna fucking try this one. So anyways, the slow, dramatic build-up and folky, atmospheric overtones of the title track on this one reminded me a lot of listening to Amorphous, which I think once more sets the tone for the hour and 6-minute runtime. And then in that same song, we also get one of the most infectious chorus hooks of their entire career. Which quelled some of my concerns given my thoughts on the last two albums. This is then followed immediately by the second single, Nous sommes la guerre, or We Are War, which is just a full-on 7-minute prog opus that only seems to get better with each listen. Again, definitely taking some notes from A Wisp of the Atlantic. Love the synth work on this one too, absolutely gorgeous. Also definitely feeling some likely comparisons to The Living Infinite, but where that album instantly gripped me with almost every song and held my attention consistently the whole way through, I do find myself losing focus more with this one, especially in the middle. That said, I am digging this way more than the Ride Majestic or Verklighten. Tracks like Is It In Your Darkness and Vultures have such an incredibly dense atmosphere that just sweeps you away to another place. The latter also incorporating a nice bluesy, head-bobbing groove further in. Golgotha is amongst the heavier tracks with its raging drums and tremolo lines, and also Harvest Spine with both chugging verses and soaring choruses. Nice dynamics too with the sort of chill piano and noodling clean guitars intermission on that track name that I'm also not even going to attempt, as well as the strings on the Everlasting Flame. All said and done, I think that this is a really good album with a lot going for it, but it just doesn't quite live up to the promise of their best progressive leaning works at this point. So ultimately, I'm going to put this one at B tier. Y'all check out this playlist for plenty more melodic death metal rankings, and let me know again what you think down in the comments. But that'll do it for now. Flight of Icarus signing off. I will see you in the trenches.